Hello and welcome to another episode of Build a Beast. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the next chapter of our journey. We are leveling up our life and maximizing our day-to-day energy. That's really the overarching theme of this journey and this adventure. If it's your first time tuning in, we are essentially sharing a journey together of leveling up my mental health, physical health, and maximizing the total energy available each day. Thanks to our superstar coach this season, who is a master of what he calls the energy equation. He has maximized this, is an absolute nerd on anything, everything here, and we have the data to prove it. So the man I'm talking about is an elite performance coach that prior came from the NHL and now is working with high-level executives and teams to maximize their day-to-day efficiency. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Justin Roethlingshoefer.
How we doing, my man?
Yo, always a pleasure when I'm hopping on one of these. I always have like a little bit of that, like, the homework's due, like type of thing. But all good faith. It's been an awesome journey so far, and we've just cracked barely the tip of the iceberg. So glad to be here, man.
No, it's always awesome to go through this because it's one of those things when you're trying to habit adopt, and I don't care how many books you read, I don't care how many experts you talk to, they're always going to say, oh, it's 21 days to build a habit, or it's 65, or it's 77, or it's 31. Habits can be adopted overnight. And it comes to the mindset and choice in which we make it. And I heard a quote the other day that really just put it all back into perspective and made it so clear on what this journey truly is and what we're learning on a day-to-day basis as to whether we're applying it or not. And it's a mistake repeated more than once is no longer a mistake, it's a decision. And it's so true, is that mistakes are okay. I will accept a mistake any day of the week. Any day of the week. Stayed up too late, didn't eat the right food, didn't prioritize, didn't plan. My HRV shows it. My resting heart rate tells me. My sleep quality tells me. But if we make the same mistake over and over again, and I hear it from clients all the time when they start, is I'll start off with a really quick story. Was on with an executive who his company is worth about $500 million, about 500 million, and was sitting there, and we were having this conversation, and to the point where he was like ill on every given day, like he's just ill from the stress. And when we talked to him and his wife, all of a sudden, as we started to learn that the habits that was putting him there was the inability to deal with the stress, the inability to put himself first, the inability to put his family first, and ultimately these things were manifesting.
Yeah.
Well, we started with just one thing, which was to plan the time at which he was going to go to sleep and shut off from the business. Shut off. And it wasn't like we were saying, it's not like he's working until 10 o'clock at night and we said, okay, you have to shut off at 4 p.m. We're like, you're working until 10 p.m. at night. Let's shut everything off at 8. Shut everything off at 8. And the only thing I want you to do is make sure that you have one type of movement per day, because we're going into exercise today. And I said one piece of movement today in a day, and that could be 10 minutes. Well, we started with that, and 10 days later, we get on a call, hadn't even made one change, was actually up until midnight on a couple times on calls, and was not willing to make the choice to make the decision to put the boundary in, put the barrier in, and carve the time in. And the excuse was, I can't find time. I don't have time. Well, we need to understand, as high-performing people, high-performing executives, I don't care if you want to be a high-performing cart girl or boy at the grocery store. Whatever you want to be a high-performing individual at, you need to make change to create change. If you want the results to change, your actions need to change. And so all of a sudden, when we started to talk about this and called him out on it, nobody ever called him out on anything. Immediately, he tries it, goes, man, I feel so much better. Why is that? And lo and behold, the changes that we start to implement start to work. So it goes back to what we're working with you on, because I want to get into today, which is exercise. And the reason I love to start with exercise is because it's not the most important thing. Of the 8 categories in which we talked about, I would put exercise at the bottom. Reason being is that exercise is just something that a lot of people put in and go, oh my God, I need to exercise to change the way I'm feeling. But yet stress management, immune function, mindset, nutrition, hydration, all of these things, they continue to push to the wayside because they're like, oh, it's not a big deal. I can get to it later at another point. And they're going to start with exercise, but it's not the most important. And we want to change the mindset to exercise, because I know when we started with you as well, Travis, you're like, oh my God, I don't know when I'm going to find time to exercise. I haven't done anything in so long. And it starts to create some level of anxiety in us, is that we need to get this stuff going. We need to work at people think exercise, they think going for runs, they think biking, they think lifting weights, they think massive amounts of sweating and just profusely puking over different aspects. And that's truly not the case of what it needs to be. It just needs to be somewhere where we can start. And I'm going to share my screen with you where we started with you, and I'll just put it on the 3-month track. It was about a month and a half ago that we started, Travis. And when you look at this, we started out like gangbusters. And I said to you, I still think you remember what I said. I was like, Travis, this is great. I love it. But let's start where we're going for consistency. And so all of a sudden, we started to push it where we just did something every single day. And I know we did something these days, but your Whoop died. But every single day since this day, since January 8th, you've done something every single day. And that is the key, guys. That is the key, is that Travis has committed himself to doing something every single day. And when I say doing something, we always come back to movement. We come back to the importance of that, because I know we talked about it at the very beginning was parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous systems. And this big spectrum that exists. Sympathetic being over here, parasympathetic being over here. Parasympathetic, rest, digest, relax. Sympathetic being that stress, anxiety, fight or flight. And when we exercise, like physically hard, go for a run, physically hard, lift, physically hard, do something that is difficult, it puts us actually into that sympathetic state. And so continually adding to that sympathetic state that we are continually living in from the stress, the anxiety, everything else that we're doing may not actually help us. Okay, may not actually put us in the performance level in which we think that we need to be operating at. Conversely, movement is what allows our body to determine the scale in which we need to be in at today. Perfect example is this morning. I woke up this morning, was in an absolute, like, I don't know when I've felt like this before, where I've woken up at 5 a.m. I had a client at 5:30 over in China. And I was like, I woke up, was with them 5:30 or 5 till about 5:45. Typically, that's my workout time. I was like, there is not a way in hell I'm working out this morning. I am gassed. I went down, I went to bed, slept for another hour and a half. I got up, I felt amazing, and did my next client. And then I had an hour and a half bike ride, and I felt great.
Mm.
But by understanding what your body needs, I typically lift on Thursdays. I didn't lift today. Why? Because my body was saying I did not need it. I don't feel like I can. But I didn't compromise my movement, which was what put me in a better space. And so by understanding that you're not committing to a hard lift, but you're committing to movement every day, intentional movement is the key. Okay, intentional movement. And what that means is that could be going for a run, could be going for a walk, could be doing yoga, could be meditation, it could be a yoga flow, it could be a workout, it could be a core series, it could be simple stretching, but putting it on for 30 minutes and doing 30 minutes of intentional movement every single day and making a point of it is what ultimately allows us to get through. And you're going to hear a lot of people say, well, a lot of times you just need to get into it and you start feeling better. A lot of times you just need to like make the choice to do it. It's too easy to just say, oh, I can do anything. I get where it's coming from, but at the end of the day, if we commit to 30 minutes of movement, all of a sudden, the intensity of that movement is going to continue to increase because our overall load of what we can handle, our cup, is going to start to grow. And if we have an extremely stressful day, if we've been just grinding and going and our everything is up to here, and we now have to go and work out, and then because we choose not to work out because we know how hard it's going to be and our head is up to and our stress is up to here and we don't feel optimized in a lot of different ways, well, all of a sudden we don't do it. Now we feel worse about ourselves. Now we're like, I failed. I didn't do the workout I was supposed to do, blah, blah, blah. No. Allow yourself the 30 minutes, like I told you so many times. Go in and get your 30 minutes of core done. Go and get your 30 minutes of stretching done. Go and do your 30 minutes of meditation based upon the exercise, based upon the routine in which we're hitting. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to you, how did you feel when you were not strapped to saying, hey, I have to lift 5 days a week. I have to go and do a hard, strenuous workout 5-6 days a week. And this was the only way you could do it, versus where I said, hey, Travis, here's an exercise or movement buffet.
Yes. Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it. Yeah. I was thinking like a palette at first, but that works so much better for my type of mentality. From top to bottom, yeah, I just have a whole nother level of of just commitment in one lane is just so much more difficult to keep up with, rather than having this palette of realizing there are exercises that aren't like, pump and iron like Arnold style at the gym. You can use those, I don't know, I guess what if it would be called softer, or the more mild options as not even like fallbacks, just like a utility space. Like having that freedom and that flexibility makes it way easier to commit to the daily when it doesn't have to be lifting every day.
Completely. And it comes back to what you were saying, Travis, is it all of a sudden opens you up to understand that you can now identify what is going to be optimal for you in the space in which you're at. So say, for example, today, you're wanting to get after it. You're feeling really good. You want to go and you want to lift hard. The goal is to lift hard 3 days a week. Say, for example, that's the goal, is to get a good hard lift in 3 days a week. That's typically what we talk about with all my clientele about, and exactly what we've talked about to you. But all of a sudden, we start looking back on it and going, okay, if Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we want to get those hard lifts in. Well, what happens on Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday? And anytime you're trying to add in, anytime that you're trying to add in some type of new aspect, some type of new movement, some type of new habit, if you're only doing it on 3 days, the other days you're not doing anything, it's hard to build in that habit because sometimes not doing anything feels so good. And that becomes what you want to go and do. And pattern interrupting is the worst thing that we can do when we're trying to add in a new habit. And so if we can commit to 30 minutes a day of movement, but choosing those 30 minutes based upon how we feel, we've all of a sudden feel like we don't have to do something, but we get to do something. And that goes to stimulating what we talked about here, which we've seen in you. I'll go back to this screen, is the consistency that we've seen here has all of a sudden turned into the consistency that we've seen in, as it populates, in your recovery scores. And I'll drop it down to this 1 month. If we take a look at the 1 month, we've had one day, Travis, where we've been in red. And we know what we did that day was we had a couple extra cocktails. And that's okay. But in that one day, everything else has been consistent. And we've been able to perpetually work at a higher level. The next thing that we're going to start to do, which we're going to talk about next week, is we'll see how our water intake and our height and our nutrition has impacted this. But also we're going to get into how your sleep has been impacted. And all of a sudden, when you come back to you and focus on what you need, it's amazing to see what that level of consistency will give when it's not, this is what you have to do. It's you get to choose, but the habit itself is ingrained. The time slot is made. It's just like dinner. Would we ever skip dinner? A lot of people probably, I mean, unless you're doing a crazy fast or something like that. But like dinner is just something that we know habitually, like when you were growing up, or maybe it's in your household now. It's like, I'm going to have dinner every night at 5:45 p.m. That's typically when we eat. Or your dog, for example. I guarantee your dogs start barking or start whining, start getting a little moody at 6 o'clock because they know that's
Spot
when they
on.
eat. That's when they eat.
Spot on.
Exactly. And it just comes back to you. The same thing is if you didn't ever feed your dogs at 6 and you only ever fed them once a day, a big massive meal at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you fed them double the amount of food that they consume in the morning and night and gave them one meal, that's the habit they would get used to. But it's the same thing here with this time block of 30 minutes. If you do not work out regularly, if you're not training regularly and you want to optimize HRV and you want to optimize stress and you want to take yourself from sympathetic to parasympathetic more often, exercise is that one key element that can help with that. But by planning it in certain increments, it doesn't need to be 30 minutes, do 10 minutes a day, every single day, and add that in. And then start opening that window up. Then go to 20 minutes a day after 2-3 weeks. Then go to 30 minutes after 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. Then go to 40 minutes after 2, 3, 4 months. And all of a sudden, you've now iteratively added in this habit, and you've been able to choose what works for you on one given day, as long as you have a trainer, as long as you have somebody guiding you, as long as you had some sort of system in which you're operating off of.
Yeah, no, it gives it just the probability of it converting to reality just becomes way easier than trying to hop in all at once. So I think, the palate theory or buffet theory does make it way more digestible in a way, and self-serve, which I think is really one of the key pieces is that you've enforced is playing your game, like whatever works for you as an individual. So whether that's timing or the type of activity, you can start it in a smaller chunk, and then that flexibility is what has enabled it for me of just giving a full hour, like 9 to 10 is the window to get it done, and then it's like 10 minimum, like 30 max of anything.
And
And
that's
that level of flexibility, yeah, is pretty easy to stay consistent right now.
And I mean, Travis, we
But
see it in everything that you do, and what we're talking about here in your strain scores, because you straight up said to me, you go, "Hey, Justin, man, like as work has really started to pick up, the time I've spent has gone down, and what I've been doing has gone down. But hey, you did functional fitness this day, you meditated this day, you did Pilates this day, you did functional fitness that other day, did functional fitness, you walked this day, and all of a sudden we start looking at it versus where we were here. You're now at least tapping into something every single day. The intensity may have gone down in terms of what we're doing, but that break and you time in which you were doing it has not waned, which is the key point. And it comes back to the habit. And that's the key point that we start to hit on day in and day out, is it's all about habits, because seasons are going to come. Busy seasons at work are going to come. Busy seasons in family time are going to come. But if we hold true to the habit and getting that movement in every single day, we all of a sudden can own that time in our day. And it becomes something that we get to decide what we do based off what our needs are for that day.
brilliant. No, it's super helpful to know, and has cracked open, like, yeah, a whole new perspective. I think especially when you've referenced the sympathetic and parasympathetic worlds of how typically you just assume like one is good, one is bad. At least that's what I assumed. And what we actually should be doing is swinging between those states, like a pendulum. I saw some questions about like the cold showers and stuff like that. I know are all part of that whole nervous system shocking and relaxing. Or could we dive deeper into what is, I guess, the theory and best practices around those pieces of parasympathetic and sympathetic activities?
Yeah, absolutely. So Wim Hof has really made cold water immersion and the breath work sexy again. Let's put it that way. And what often happens is we don't realize that cold water immersion it puts your body into an extremely sympathetic state. Extremely sympathetic state. And when we wake up in the morning, you have to people that are like, we have to figure out what we are. And hear me out on this. When we wake up and we're just like, oh, groggy and just blah, and it takes us 3 hours to get moving, and we aren't motivated, and we're just tired, and we need a coffee, and then we sit and watch TV, or we read the paper, whatever it is that we're doing that's really not getting us anywhere. And people want to get up and going and activate that sympathetic nervous system and kind of be like, okay, time to go. Like this, like you said, the sympathetic nervous system is a necessity to our lives, is necessary to productivity, is necessary to actual success. But being in it chronically is not okay. And so if you're a person like me who wakes up ready to go, on fire in the morning, the last thing I want to do is get in a cold shower. That's just going to piss me off. And I mean, and people are going to say, like, there's differing opinions. But the science will not lie that if you take cold showers, if you do things that stimulate, and cold showers are just an example, but if you do things that stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system and you're already in, or stimulate your sympathetic nervous system and you're already in a sympathetic state, it will overload that sympathetic nervous system and can have a reverse effect on what it's meant to do. Straight up. And so it's becoming self-aware and knowing where you're at. If you know that when you wake up in the morning that you are in this state of disarray and that you're one of those people that needs a little jolt to get going in the morning and needs to focus in, then boom, cold water immersion may be something you want to explore. The other thing you can explore is some type of fast flow yoga. The other thing you can explore is some type of music that changes the tone and changes the sympathetic to parasympathetic stance of the body. These are all things that can change what it is that you're doing and where you're at. Same thing goes at night. Is if you're getting ready for bed and your body temperature is always high when you're going into bed, great thing is to do a really quick cold water immersion. Drop the body temperature. It'll put you into that sympathetic nervous system. But a lot of people do that and then go right into meditation. And because they go into meditation, it takes them into a deeper brainwave state. Their body temperatures are lower, so they're preparing to go to sleep, and thus they fall asleep like babies. And so it's knowing when the tool, it's not the tool that needs to be demonized. It's not the tool that needs to be talked negatively about, but it's knowing when to utilize those tools, knowing when to apply those tools to our life. If cold water immersion works for you in the morning because you need to get going, great. If you need to do it at night to help you get a better night's sleep, and that's what we can start tracking for through data and through this information, then great. Because remember, the first session that I did with you guys, the first session that Travis, you and I have really dove into, what's the key metric that we need to know? What's the number one key metric that we need to dive in on?
HRV.
3 letters, HRV. I'll give you guys a little story here. As I've been doing experiments over the last little bit, and I'm currently connected to 4 different wearables. So I've got BioStrap, I've got a Whoop, I've got an Oura Ring, and I've got a Polar Heart Rate Strap. The reason being is I want to know how accurate is not only HRV, but how accurate are the recovery scores? How accurate is the sleep stuff? And to be honest, all the wearables are giving me, nice, I hear myself.
Yeah, that was.
But to be honest, I'm hearing everything, or I'm seeing all the wearables giving me different numbers all the time. Mm-hmm. Give me different numbers all the time for sleep, for strain, for all these things. But guess what is accurate and what is within probably 1% in every single one of them?
That HRV, baby.
HRV.
Nice.
And so if we can learn what that is all about, and this is why, Travis, in this whole process with you, how many times have I ever asked you what your strain score was?
I think right at the very beginning once, or maybe none that I'm remembering.
Very few.
Yeah.
How many times have I ever said, where's our recovery score at?
Yeah, actually it wasn't top of mind. I thought I was gonna be in trouble today with all yellows. But it was just because of different, I guess, we were mentioning brief allusions to sleep quality, but the recovery score hasn't been super active in our conversations.
Correct. Because guess what? You're going to see different numbers. You're going to be, but go back to your HRV. That's all I've ever clicked on. That's all I've ever looked at was your HRV, and then paired over with your sleep scores. Because if we click on recovery, and I showed you here, I said, hey, we've been extremely consistent. We come into your HRV, look at the upward trend. If I was to draw a trend line, we are trending upwards. We know that over the last 3 or 4 days, we've had some stressful days. No big deal. But where we started at 45, we're trending upwards. And that's the trend that matters. Now, when it comes to sleep, we'll utilize this sleep metric pretty heavily, understanding where we are in terms of our overall consistency. But we do not need to utilize, this is where it becomes so confusing for a lot of people, is they look at so many metrics. They look at all of these tools and it's overwhelm. And if we can minimize it down to a simple task like 30 minutes of movement a day and own that time, or look at just HRV and just know that that number is going to help guide us, then we know what tool to implement at what time. Just like our audience has been asking, do you do cold showers? Yes, I do cold showers. Do I have a trainer myself? Yes, I have a trainer myself. Do I have, and I mean, I have a trainer myself, and I train 100 different professional athletes. I train over 1,000 high-end CEOs. And at this point, like the everybody needs somebody to be able to talk to be able to communicate with, to be able to help guide. That is what helps facilitate this. But we need to dumb it down to 1-2 metrics, because if we looked at everything, we'd just be spinning our head like an owl, like just around in circles.
It's the same. No, I keep equating it to, just because I've have so much, I guess, entrepreneurial experience, or I'm just wired to think of it. But the same thing when you're wanting a growth campaign for a business or a marketing campaign, you key in on 1, maybe 2 KPIs, key performance indicators, and those are your lifeline for the campaign. Is it a success or not? So equating that and treating your habits and your body and your life in the same way only makes sense, at least from my perspective. So that's our KPIs are minimized down to those 1 or 2 things. So I love
exactly
it.
Right. You're exactly right. And if you do that, you're going to win at the end of the day all the time, because you're not going to be chasing numbers that don't make sense. You're not going to be chasing something that's just completely out of control. And when you're able to be dialed in on that and get your habits down to literally like guys, going forward, like this week, all we wanted to do last week was get yourself scheduled. Remember, we wanted to create that schedule for this week coming up. Now that we've got the schedule this week, all I want you to focus on, it depending on who you are, where you are you currently exercising? Are you currently working out every day? Great. If you're working out once a week, twice a week, maybe inconsistently, once a month, let's get 10 minutes a day put onto the schedule where you're going to do some type of movement, some type of like absolutely purposeful, intentional movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your takeaway. That's the habit builder this week. 10 minutes of intentional movement. Or if you're working out every day, or you're more acclimated to do these types of things, like for me, I have an hour blocked on my schedule every single day that I'm doing some type of movement, be it a workout, be it a bike, be it a whatever. Sometimes it ends up being an hour and a half. Sometimes I do 2 sessions of an hour because I have more time. But it comes down to the purpose and intention of me showing up and how you do it, and that it's on the schedule and it's there. And then you have that exercise buffet or movement buffet of what you do. Is it meditation? Is it breath work? Is it yoga? Is it flow? Is it stretching? Is it a run? Is it an elliptical? Is it a bike? Is it core work? Is it a lifting routine? Is it a high intensity interval training? Is it a circuit? Is it band work? You name it. Like you can find all of this stuff all over YouTube, all over anywhere. There's free apps that you can go and do. So the space that you have, the tools that you have, there's zero limitations. It's just a choice as to what you would want to do.
Yeah, no, the palette theory is super useful to just simplify the conversation. Pick 2 or 3 consistent, I guess, at least that's what I have, is I just have like body weight and free weight exercises I can do in the living room, or meditation is, I guess, the parasympathetic one, that if I feel physically like just sore or just don't have the energy, then I switch to one of those as my backup. And then the rest is, picking through that Own It library, actually, of those day-to-day options. Every once in a while, that's the third option I do, is I throw in a new random one. So it's a healthy mix of my go-to stuff in the living room
Yep.
that's already right there, ready to go. I have to walk past it like 10 times if I want to ignore it. So that's the easiest go-to. So I think if people have their own version, like I think Nick just said, martial arts is weights and running. That's his palette to utilize one of those three. It just makes it so much more realistic. So I think that's a big win for anybody here that is curious about what to fill with that time. Just pick 2 or 3 things you would normally do anyways,
Well,
and make it consistent.
and what I would even add in here is like martial arts, weights, and running. Those are all great, but they're all going to be more on the sympathetic side of things. They're all going to be on the side that like challenges you to a really high level. So unless you're wanting to, again, just change the pace up in which you're going for a run, or maybe it's martial arts, weights, yoga, running, and walking. That's like a very easy example. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's so with that being said, kind of with that pendulum theory, what is the ideal, I guess, frequency of going from that sympathetic straining, working out type of vibe to the parasympathetic? Is that something that should be in a daily oscillation? Is that in where you should be straining in the morning and then parasympathetic at night? Or is that something that like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm in like sympathetic state, working out, running, whatever, and then Thursday, Friday, meditating and yoga, and or I guess yoga could still that could do some work on the body. But those more chill ones, I guess, if that's a better way from like hype to
Totally.
chill, like those two direction. What's the best like oscillation
Yeah.
strategy?
There's a couple, and again, it's so individual, right? It comes back to like how often have you been working out to begin with? How often have you been pushing to begin with? So, but it comes down to getting a calendar like this. Is like you could go high intensity interval training or weights, or if you don't like lifting weights and that's not your thing, then like a hard run or cardio of some type. And then you would repeat this. You'd theoretically go every second day. Okay, if you wanted to, and you're adding it in like this. And then now you have Saturday, Sunday. Well, the day before, you're probably going to want to do yoga. The day before that, you're going to want to do some type of maybe like we were talking about there, maybe it's martial arts. And then maybe it's a flex day and core and walk and stretch. Okay, for example. Now, when we look at this, what I'm talking about having the flexibility of is if you all of a sudden wake up and you look at this and go, man, I'm absolutely torched because I had a crazy strenuous day. Do not feel bad to do this, boom, 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 and take your flex day and move it to Wednesday. And in your flex day, because you're feeling that way, you do a yoga session with meditation. And all of a sudden, I guarantee you're going to come back and you're going to hit this on Thursday and feel a lot better. And then, okay, well, you do another one Friday. Well, maybe you feel great on Friday and you're ready to go again. And then Saturday, martial arts, you're like, I'm tired. Do it on Sunday, push yoga to this day. And now it becomes this ability to do this. But what you do is you figure out, okay, how much do you want to do in a given week? And so what we say to our clients is 3 full lifts a week or workouts a week. So that would be like on a 1 out of 10 scale, you'd say that would be like a 7 to 9. And then the other 4 days are somewhere between that 4 and 7 range. And now this is just what you build it off of. And this is for somebody who's like more in that very intermediate beginner stage where you're like, hey, we're going to do 20 minutes a day, of these types of things. Now, if you're somebody who's a bigger veteran in this space and you're like, hey, I'm going 60 minutes a day, well, we might not even hit 7 here. We may hit like 5 full lifts, like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then on Wednesday, Saturday, we're still putting in 4 days of like that 4 to 7, where it's more just your cardio, just your core, some auxiliary work, yoga. Maybe you're doubling up on some days, but you're starting somewhere. You don't. You just hear this like verbal diarrhea all the time from these people that say, "Hey, this is what I've done. This is why I look the way that I do. So this is what you need to do." And that's the furthest thing from the truth. It's that you get started, you choose where you start, where you go from, and away you go. You now have an option. You now have somewhere to start that you can be responsible for, to be consistent with. Because remember, like we said at the beginning, once you're given and exposed to a certain piece of information, once you're given and exposed to a certain type of information, it's no longer the mistake that you're making. If you didn't know about it and you made a mistake, no big deal. But if you now know what that mistake is and you continue to make it, that's not a mistake, it's a decision.
Boom. Love it. No, it's the consistency factor is really the part that just ingrains it. Because the moment you give it some leeway, it's can go south
Completely.
real quick. So I'm glad that's been emphasized, and the bar was much lower than I thought it had to be when you have that flexibility of going multiple directions. So that was definitely a big win. Big win in my book of utilizing that palette with flexibility.
Completely. And the better you can do that, the better. Better you can do that, the better.
Yes, absolutely brilliant. I see. So they are asking, Nick, there will be a show on nutrition, an entire day dedicated to that. We do have those 8 pillars. Yeah, is that next week already? Oh my gosh, perfect. So yes, indeed, that's a nice, perfect little segue. Join us next week talking about nutrition. So I guess, yeah, that can last call for anybody if you do want to get in a direct question for Justin, drop it here. But feel free to, so if next week is nutrition and we've worked on exercise habits today, what is our homework or focus points to work on between now and next week?
Yeah, so big thing that you want to do is continue to schedule out your weeks, continue to take a look at the macro, so having that plan on Sunday. And then the second thing that we're going to start doing, which is the first real habit integration, is no matter who you are, where you are, what level you are at, starting at 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 60 minutes a day, but building in a constant movement window for you, building that into your schedule. 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, 80 minutes for you. Okay. Build it right into that schedule.
Boom. Brilliant. And then we did have a question come through. Any tips for workouts or movement exercises while traveling?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing is you always want to take something with you, take a tool with you. So I always travel with actually, I'll grab it here. Super easy.
A little show and tell action, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. Well, little foam roller, just like this. So I can foam roll in the room, and then it's hollow. So on the inside, I have a resistance band.
Oh, nice.
I have my heart rate monitor, and I have a bunch of resistance bands that go up on the door, so I can do rows, I can do presses, I can do everything else. But that literally fits inside here, goes in 1, goes in 2, goes in 3. I tighten it, and away I go. And I throw it right into my bag. So that is the easiest thing that you can do to take with you anywhere you go on the road. And it's extremely simple. to just rip that out first thing in the morning, last thing at night, whatever, and make sure that you can stay on some type of movement routine, because again, it's utilizing it over and over and over again when you're in it.
Brilliant. No, that's they like the that setup. We'll definitely keep that top of mind to load up in the arsenal. All right. Was there anything we missed in the exercise category to hit either high level or maybe on the micro level details before we wrap things up?
I think that's it. I mean, to be honest with you, it comes down to planning and executing and getting your 10 to 15 to 20 to 40 to whatever level you feel good with, consistently sitting at, so that's where you can work and that's where you can get that stuff done.
Brilliant. Nope. Yeah, that's it's a lot simpler than you probably think. I know the implementation of giving myself just a 1 hour window and then having a 10 to 30 minute movement or exercise of any kind in that window has worked really great for me. So we'll be joining next week's show on nutrition. So when you guys join for that, hopefully you'll have some type of habits put in form already as far as all the exercises we've tapped into. So if you do need or would like a palette of options and exercises kind of fed to you daily, connect with Justin. I know he's got an arsenal, absolutely massive arsenal, and YouTube videos and walkthroughs like of anything you could imagine. So do connect with him. He'll be able to hook you up with those. And
on that point, if anybody needs that and wants an app that literally has a curated 15 to 25 different buffet choices every day that gives guided videos, guided guidance as to how to go through it, send me a follow, send me a choice, send me anything. Say, hey, this is, and we can get you hooked up with that app really, really quick, and something you can start implementing tomorrow to build out your arsenal so that you can, again, know where you're going, what you're doing, and how to utilize it really well. Simple videos just to follow along with, and away you go.
Perfect. No, it looks like Nick, a Ronin janitor, will be probably utilizing that incoming. Open offer to anybody there. This is the real deal. I've been absorbed into the the everything, the whole world, and it has been I use that for about a third of my exercise days. I go to that palette and throw something new in the mix. So definitely worth pursuing. And thank you guys to everybody, Jackie, Nick, Tommy, especially appreciate you, brother, and anybody else that slipped through the cracks. We can't see the LinkedIn comments at the moment. We hit the API limit earlier, so I'll check in on that. But thank you, Justin, for another excellent week of Build a Beast. We'll catch everybody else next week, the exact same time. Thanks, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for another episode of Build a Beast. Let us know if you have any final questions or anything that pops up in the realm of exercise and integrating it into your habits and your lifestyle. We'll get you connected with Justin and hooked up. But until then, we'll catch you next week for the nutrition episode.